Hello friends, good evening. Welcome to PDF for Exams YouTube channel. Today is day 30. We are learning geography and this would be last video of geography. And after that we'll start a new subject. So in this video we will be learning about migration. That is, what is migration, what are causes of migration and what are consequences. And under consequences we will see what are economic consequences, social consequences, environmental, economical and demographic. So we have many subparts of consequences. So starting with what is migration. So migration is a very common word. You might be aware of this word. Simply migration means movement of humans or animals from one place to another place. So this is very common and simple definition of migration. That is, if any people or animal is moving from one place to another place either temporarily or permanently is called migration. You might have seen in an area, if you're living in village or if you are staying in town, you might have gone to other town, or if you're living in village you might have gone to some other town for studying purpose, or your parents might be residing in village but for job purpose they might have gone to other country, other town or other cities. So this movement of your father or your parents or you yourself for studying to other cities is known as migration. Okay, and in migration there are two places. First, the place of origin, that means where the people is originating, and the other place is called place of destination, that means where the people is going or where one person is going. For example, one person is staying in Uttar Pradesh, somewhere in Uttar Pradesh, and for job purpose is moving to Delhi or Mumbai. So Delhi and Mumbai would be place of destination. Destination means where they're reaching. Similarly, the place of origin would be from where the person is going. Okay, and what are the other factors of migration? These are very common factors. If you think, you will know by yourself how these factors are significant. So the other factor is population increase and decrease. So if someone is going away from UP to other cities, population in UP will decrease. It's very simple, because persons are reducing from this place, and the person who are moving to the other towns and cities like Delhi and Mumbai, over here there would be increase in population. Okay, and it will obviously affect economical and social life at both the places. Socially it will affect, economically it will affect. There would be lots of factors. Okay, now what are the factors which influence migration? So generally there are two factors which influence the factors of migration. What are those factors? The first is push factor and other is pull factor. What do you understand by push? Push means someone is pushing you, okay, and pull means someone is attracting you. So over here, how these two factors play important role in case of migration. See, we have seen that there are two places. One place is called as place of origin and the other place is called place of destination. So these are two places which are involved in migration. So where these two factors will help, so this push factor will be there in the place of origin, whereas this pull factor will be at the destination. Now if someone is attracting like a magnet, what does it mean? It means, if you are in village, if I'm talking about migration from village to town, see, there are many cases and many examples. I'm just taking one example and trying to explain you. So if you are residing in village, and in village you see there are no proper roads, you don't have proper education institutes, you don't have proper healthcare system, you don't have shopping malls, you don't have cinema theaters, you don't have all the facilities which make your lifestyle better. But when you compare your village to the towns or cities, you see you have all those kind of facilities which makes your lifestyle better, and you have got better opportunities like economical opportunities, you have got social opportunities, you have got several opportunities which are there in the other cities or town. So obviously you will move or you will be attracted to these town, and these factors which are not present over here, they will push you to move to the places, and hence they are called pushing factor. And over here these factors are responsible for pulling you or attracting you, and hence they are called as pulling factor. Okay, I hope you have got this. What are the factors which are responsible for migration? Now we'll see what are the effects of migration. See, as I said, effects means the consequences of migration. So there are consequences in many areas. First consequence, what would be the very first consequence? That would be a demographic consequence. Demographic consequence means population increase and decrease of population. As we know, demography, what is demography? Demography is divided, means the population which is divided on the basis of caste, sex, race, ethnicity. So these will differ from one place to another place. If people who are residing in village, they move to town, so demographic changes would be seen in cities as well as in town, in place of destination and place of origin, that is villages. So over here demographic changes would be there. Another changes would be economic change. See, if some people is going from this place to this place, so generally what happens, general tendency is that people move from urban to rural area. Urban area means like villages and all, and rural means places of cities and all. So people move from urban to cities for in seeking better opportunities, economic opportunities. So if anyone visits cities, they will earn some money and send some part of money back to the villages in order to make the survival of their family, whoever is still residing in villages. So this will be called under economic consequences, and this sending back money from the destination, place of destination, is called remittance. See, this remittance word is very important and it has got much to do. Why it has got much to do? Because this remittance is major cause of economic changes in cities as well as in villages. See, if people are residing here and they are working over here, they are sending the economy, the money earned from this place, to villages, and the village economy are almost run by the money sent by them. Whereas the people residing in city, the people who come to city for working, they are developing, they are helping development of these area. That's why economic consequences are there also. So these are the economic consequences. We have seen the demographic consequences. Next consequences, social. So what are social consequences? See, what happen if people are moving from urban area to city area. So there are some urban area which are not culturally very developed. Culturally developed means they are very backward in case of cultures. So in cities areas where we have lots of culture, like if someone is going from a village of UP or village to Delhi, and in Delhi we have a very different culture. The culture would be very different from here, and over there, while coming over there, they will get their mind open. That means they will become open-minded people while coming to cities. Whereas there are other consequences of this social consequence or social benefit. If it has got some merit, it has got demerits also. So in cities, as we know, people from different area come. Some will come from UP, some people will come from Bihar, some will come from Jharkhand. So people from several states will be coming to cities, and when they come to cities, in cities there would be intermixing of culture. Lots of culture would be there, and there might be some individual who found himself or herself alone because they are not able to adapt with the culture, the new culture where they are coming, or they have seen multiple culture and they're not able to go through them. That's why they might feel alone or alienated, and this would be cause of depression to them. So this is very dangerous also sometimes, as well as it is very beneficial. Now next consequences, environmental consequences. What is this environmental consequences? See, whenever people are migrating towards cities, so over there people need places to live. They will start settling, and for the cause of settling, lots of trees and forests are cut, and because of that it will impact or hamper environment. And even though these building of industries and also hamper environment, since more and more laborers are coming over here, this would be an environmental impact. Apart from this, what happens? See, when people are migrating from villages to town or towns to villages, the concentration of population increases or decreases. See, if this is a village and most of the people who are migrating to cities will be younger age, if we have young youth people over here and if they are coming to cities, so what will happen at villages? There would be scarcity of young people, and the major segment of villages is agriculture. Agriculture is the major work which is being done in villages. So this work will not be done perfectly. That means our primary sector would be hampered. As we know, economically, our economics have three sectors: primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. In primary sector, what kind of activities are done? The activities of extracting the raw material. Anything present in raw form, those are extracted and exploited, comes under primary sector, like fishing, mining, agriculture. Next is secondary sector. Secondary sector, we have production of finished good. These raw materials are used as raw materials and they are converted to finished good in secondary sector. And finally, we have tertiary sector. Under tertiary sector comes all the service sector like education, healthcare and all. So these are the economic sectors. Fine. So this will affect in that way also. So I hope all kind of consequences are over. Now let's see the other topic. What is there? Next would be the types of consequences, and there are many scales at which this migration occur. See, migration doesn't only occur from a village to village or city to city or village to city or city to village. It even happens between the continents. See, it is intercontinental, from one continent to other. Like people from Asia might go to Australia or USA or somewhere in other country like Africa, or people might go between continents, and people might go between country also. So intracontinental. So for example, Asia is a continent, and in Asia we have many countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Sri Lanka, and Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia. So people might migrate from India to Pakistan or Pakistan to India or Sri Lanka or Thailand. So inter-country migration is called as intracontinental. Next is interregional. So migration within the countries. Like in India we have 29 states. So people may migrate from one state to other state. That would be called as inter-regional migration. Okay. The next topic is types of migration. So how many types of migration are there? We'll see. So the first type is internal migration. As we have already seen that internal would be case of reference. If we take a reference, for example, if we take a particular state, if migration is happening in that state, for example, let's take UP. If migration is taking place in Uttar Pradesh, within Uttar Pradesh, that migration would be called intermigration for that state. If migration is taking place within a country, that migration would be called internal migration for that country. And if migration is taking place for a continent like Australia, if migration is taking place within Australia, within the countries of Australia, that would be called as continental migration or internal continent migration. Okay, so you have to understand with the context of state, country or continent, when these migration are happening within the state, then you will have just add a word over here, internal state migration. If it is happening within a country, you add internal country migration, and if it is happening within a continent, you add internal continent migration. Next is external migration. Now external migration is again very common. It means moving out from one state to another state. See, if we have 29 states in a country, if someone migrates from UP, Uttar Pradesh to Bihar, or from Bihar to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, wherever they migrate, but that would be within states, that would be called external migration. Or it would be within countries, like people moving from one country to another country, that would be called country. And again the same with continent migration, moving from one continent to another continent. Fine. Now next type of continent or next kind of migration which is important is immigration. Now you might have heard about this word immigration. What happens in immigration? Whenever you are traveling with flight, you have to go for immigration. That means whenever you reach a new country, you have to apply for immigration. So simply immigration means migration of people from other countries to our country. That is called immigration. And what is would be emigration? See, emigration and immigration are almost similar terms. Don't get confused with these terms. Immigration means moving to a new country. When you leave your country and move to other country, you have to go to airports for immigration papers. You have to sign immigration papers and all, complete your documents. Similarly, when someone is coming from to your country, they will immigrate. They will be immigrating to your country. But when you yourself are leaving the other country and coming back to your country, that would be called as emigration. Next kind of migration is population transfer. When government forces large people or people out of region to move from that particular region to other region, that would be called as population transfer. The reason for these kind of migration are many, like there are war conditions, or some floods and all are there, or on the base of ethnicity or religion. For example, during India and Pakistan war, not war actually, partition, all Muslim were asked to go to Pakistan, whereas all Hindu, they were asked to come to India. India was open for both Muslim and Hindu, whereas Pakistan only Muslims used to go there. Okay, so that was called population transfer. Next is impaired migration. So under impaired migration, government doesn't force anyone to move out of the place where they're living. Instead, when there are some situation when people don't want to, don't feel safe to live in that area, they will automatically on their own migrate to other places. Like some political problems are existing there, or religious persecution is going on, or there is some warfare condition. Religious persecution means on the basis of religion, if people are being assassinated, that would be called as religious persecution. Okay, next is step migration. So by the name again itself it is clear. Step means migration which is happening in step. For example, if you take example of a farmer is working in his field throughout his day. At evening he moves to his house. So from farm to house is called as step migration. Again in daytime or after some time he may move to marketplace for selling his product or the crops. That would be called as step migration. Next is chain migration. Chain migration means migration happening in chain. So for example, if someone from your state or your family goes to another country like Canada, USA or any country, and they will send back money for you to go, you also migrate to those countries. That would be called as chain migration, and continuously this will happen until your whole family reaches there. Next is return migration. So sometimes what happens, people don't feel happy in the other country and they want to get back to the country or state where they're living. They return back to the place from where they have got. That will be called as return migration. Next is seasonal migration. So people might go from one place to other place during some special season, like people who are staying in cities in order for job. That means whoever are doing daily jobs, During crop season, they might return back to the villages. That would be called as seasonal migration. Okay, now we'll see what are the forms of migration. So generally we have four forms of migration in all, and what are those? By the name itself they will be clear. One is rural urban migration. That means people moving from rural area to urban area. This will be called as rural urban migration. Next is urban rural migration. Again same, more people moving from urban to rural. Rural means people moving from one rural area to other rural area. And last is urban and urban migration. That means people moving from one city to another city. So I hope you understand what is this rural area and urban area. Rural area means the villages. That means the undeveloped area would be called as rural areas, whereas urban area would be economically well developed. State road will be built, transportation will be very good, economic, education, healthcare, all the sector will be well developed. That area would be called as urban area. Fine. Whereas villages, we know what kind of development are there. Majorly agriculture and all kind of practices are done over there. That's why they are termed as rural area. Next, what we have to see is Indian migration pattern and international migration. So Indian migration happened in three phases or three waves, you can say. How it started? So initially the first time Indians started migrating to West Indies in 1840. So they didn't migrated on their own. Actually they were sent by all the Europeans who were there in India in form of slaves. At that time slavery ended. So because of that, Indian laborers or workers were sent to different countries. So in 1840, all the workers moved to places like Guyana, Trinidad, and lakhs of Indians went to these places as plantation workers. So most of the migration happened in these diaspora or on these movement happened just because of plantation worker as a slave. They moved from India to other countries just in order to work as a plantation worker for growing different kind of crops. So some Indians migrated to Jamaica, Guyana and Trinidad, and at present if you see the population of West Indies, the 50% population of West Indies are from Indian origin. That means during this time the people who went to West Indies till now they are settled there, and 50% of population from West Indies belong to somewhat Indian, and most of the people who migrated from India were from Eastern Europe, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Fine. Now we'll see three waves of diaspora. That means how Indians migrated from one place to another place. So what is diaspora? First you need to know what a diaspora is. So diaspora simply means distribution or spread of population from their homeland. That means people who are living their homeland, due to some reason they are moved to some other part of country. That would be called as diaspora. So Indian diaspora, as I said, it took place in three phases. First started in 1833. So why it was started? It was started because slavery ended. What I told you earlier, it was the same reason. So European were the people who migrated the people of these Indian origin to other countries as plantation worker for growing several crops. So when we call European, it's not only British, the French also were there in India, the Portuguese, they too were India. So the area near these places, like the Portuguese, Daman and Diu was near this Portugal area. So people from Daman and Diu were transported from India to other places as slaves or plantation worker, you can say. And people living in French colonies or French people, they migrated people of Chennai, Tamil Nadu, of that area to other countries in order in form of plantation agriculture. And similarly the European or the British, so they used the people from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. The laborers from this area were migrated to other countries for working. Especially the work and the places consisted of South Africa. That means the places where these plantation could be grown easily. That's why people were sent over there. Fine. And next wave. What was the next wave? So in next wave, what happened? It happened on its own. That means at that time people were forced to move from India to other country. But this time the people like artisan, traders, factory workers, you can see over here professionals, they were professional actually, artisan, traders, factory workers, they went off the country for seeking better life. They went to countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia and South African countries in seeking better working life, and this continued till 1917. It didn't end at that time but still continued till 1970. Until now a few professionals are still going to other countries. And the third wave started in 1960, and over here some experts like software engineer, management consultant, doctors, engineers, financial expert, media person, these all moved to the countries like USA, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Germany for proper work. And why did they move? And actually they got opportunity. In 1991 liberalization economy was there in India. Because of this, markets were open and everyone was allowed to move from India to other countries if they had any opportunities. So till now, as we know, we have H-1B visa, which is given to some professional or specialty, some person who was special in some area. So these visa were given to those person in form of H-1B visa, and they were allowed to migrate from this country to other country. Fine. Next is immigration. Immigration means the people who migrated to India. Now, India has been always under some or the other rules. Initially, it was under rule of Mughals. Before that, there is long story. I'm not going way back over there. But now, as we know, Mughals. After that, we had British people, the Europeans. Europeans ruled India. So before that, we had Dravidians, Aryans. These invaded India. After that, Muslims came as a form of Mughals and all. Then finally, European. So lots of invasion were there in India. If we talk about the migration, so this migration took place generally from the land part. At present, if we talk, see over here on the map, you can see Bangladesh is a land bordering country which shares land with India. So the people from Bangladesh, they generally migrate to Assam, Meghalaya, the places which lie next to them, even to West Bengal or Bihar, some region of Bengal. And people from Nepal, they migrate to Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. They live over these places. Sometimes they migrated illegally, sometimes they migrated legally, and because of this political issues, they became part of our country due to illegal migration. And for that very purpose, we have got NRC. You might have heard, non-resident citizen. So whoever were the actual citizen of India, they will have the right of all citizen. Whereas whoever have migrated in India illegally, they will be sent back to their countries. Okay, so this is all kind of migration which happened in land of India. And we talk about these facts. So according to 2001 census, more than 5 million person have migrated to India from other countries. See, 5 million means 50 lakh people have migrated, and 96%, the majority of people who have migrated to India belong to Bangladesh, which is 3 million. The maximum number is from Bangladesh, followed by Pakistan and Nepal. Okay. Next is refugee influx to India. Now, what is this refugee influx? Refugee simply means if they are not permitted to live their country where they're living, they would be called as refugee. So we have refugee influxes into India from many countries like Tibet, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar and Bangladesh. So if we talk about the facts, see there are factual information over here given that 3 lakh refugee in India in 2011, making India one of the top 25 refugee recipients in the world. That means if we rank countries on the basis of receiving refugees, because every country doesn't allow refugees to stay in their country, but there are certain countries who accept refugees, and India is on 25th number in this list. Okay, now we'll see the refugee which came to India. So the first refugee which came to India is Dalai Lama from Tibet. We know who is the Dalai Lama, is very famous personality, a Buddhist monk. So along with him came 80,000 refugees from Tibet, and they were permitted to make a house, where they will make a house or exile in Dharamshala. Dharamshala is there is Himachal Pradesh. In 1959, they were allowed to come here, and they were offered a very low-paying jobs by Indian government. Next is Afghan. So Afghan in 1979, around 90,000 Afghan, they came into India. When they came to India, because in 1992, Soviet Union invaded the country, and lots of trouble were there. Because of that very purpose, Afghans wanted to come to India as a refugee, and they came. 90,000 refugees were there in India. Next is Sri Lanka. So there was civil war in Sri Lanka. Why? Because Sri Lankan were demanding citizenship. Sorry, not citizenship actually. There were some Tamil people who were staying in Sri Lanka. So because of they were from Indian origin and Sri Lanka were from Sri Lankan origin, that's why there was conflict between these two, and there was civil war. Because of that, many Sri Lankan Tamil people came to India, and there were 117 camps in Tamil Nadu. So this is also very important refugee event. Next is Myanmar. 50,000 people from Myanmar and Mizoram in 2004 came back to India, and this was very much in news. You might have heard about Rohingya Muslims. 40,000 Rohingya Muslim illegally entered in India and through India from Myanmar, and this has been a very highlighted topic from last year. So you might have heard about it and you know very well about it. Next is Bangladeshi. So as we have already seen that around 50,000 Chakma refugees fled from Bangladesh to Tirupura in 1988. So Tirupura is a very next state or place, Indian part, which is lying next to Bangladesh. That's why it was easy for Bangladeshis to enter Tirupura. And there are many other points which you can see. Next is reverse migration. So what is this reverse migration? Reverse migration means people who have already migrated, but they are coming back to the place from where they migrated. Is called as reverse migration. So what happened in 2008? There were a economic recession. So after economic recession, what happened? Continuously more people were losing their job. So in that period, around 3 lakh Indian professionals who were working out of India returned India between 2011 and 2015. So that was a reverse migration from them. They came back to India. Fine. So that is reverse migration. Next is Indian migration pattern and Indian migration. So what is the pattern of Indian migration? So this talks about the migration in India, within India. That means why people move from one place to another place and how they move from one state to another state. So this is very simple. See, as we know the consequences or the causes of migration. So wherever there would be better economic opportunity, people will move from that place to other place. So let's take example of few states. Few states like Uttar Pradesh, you can take Bihar, Jharkhand. So these states doesn't have lots of industrial area and doesn't have offer lots of job, whereas the other cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai. So these cities are very well developed and have lots of facilities, and along with that they offer lots of job also. So for that very purpose, people from these states will obviously migrate to these states. So the population will in these area will increase, whereas population in these area will decrease. Same happens with villages also. Wherever people will find better economic activity, where economic functioning, they will move to that place. Fine. Next is magnitude and pattern of migration. So how people migrated and when people migrated. So there was a survey conducted according to economic survey. This is conducted every year. So according to this survey, largest recipient was Delhi, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Kerala. That means largest people who migrated from other state to these states. These were the largest recipient of migrants. Whereas the people who came from which states? The people were from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. What almost half of all the migrants which migrated to these states. Fine. So these are the just information which are given. That means why and how people migrated to which part of the country. This ends our migration point topic. Next topic that we are going to discuss is human settlement. What is human settlement? Settlement simply means the people where reside. So houses are something in which all one family resides or more than one family reside. Whereas if many houses would be there built nearby, that would be called as settlement. Okay, so over here what happened, there are several kind of settlements which are there in India, like rural settlement, urban settlement, and more kind of settlements are there. So under rural settlement and urban settlements, what is the difference? Difference is very quite simple. People or the settlements which are being made in rural area would be called as rural settlements, whereas the settlements which are being made in rural urban area would be called as urban settlement. So in rural settlement, it is divided into many parts like compact, semi-compact, hamleted settlement. So we'll see them individually what they are. So compact and clustered settlement, by the name itself it is clear. The settlements, the houses would be very compact and clustered. That means they will lie very near to each other. For example, we have this big area and somewhere in one side all the houses would be built over here, compactly built. Many houses will be here, whereas this part will be left for agriculture purpose. This is called compact and clustered settlement of rural area. Fine. Next is semi-compact. Semi-compact means the distribution would be not well. So again, if I take example of this much area and the area where people are residing, so in clustered compact set, the houses were very much organized, but here they would be randomly scattered here and there. That is called as semi-compact clustered settlement. Next is hamlet settlement. So in case of hamlet settlement, what will happen? I'll just draw a diagram and explain you. So in hamlet settlement, what happened? Small units are made. So for example, if this is a big area and small unit, that means if 10 houses are made over here, 10 houses would be made at this place, 10 or 15 houses would be made at this place. So in large area, units, blocks of houses will be made, and that would be called as hamlets. Fine. Next is dispersed settlement. Dispersed settlement, again it means dispersed means scattered. They are not near each other. For example, in hilly region, if you go in outer place, so one house is built over here, one house would be built little far away from that place, other house would be built little far away from that place. So in mountainous region, in villages, generally houses are built in this type. Okay. And this vary, the houses, it vary from 2 to 7. That means maximum houses will be 7 and minimum houses can vary from 2. The number of houses would vary from 2 to 7. Fine. This is a dispersed settlement. Now we'll see what are the pattern. Patterns means in what way these settlements are there. So you can see by the diagram itself, you'll understand very easily. Linear pattern means if houses are made in this way, that means one house 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on the other side. That means if make a linear, a line, strong straight line, that would be called as linear pattern. Cross shape pattern, if houses are made in this pattern, that means if they intersect each other at some point, that we call as cross shape pattern. Star sky pattern. So you just see the diagram. These are the roads, okay, roads for traveling. So you just see the diagram, you'll understand how these patterns are formed. We have T-shape, circular pattern, bubble pattern. So there can be a number of pattern. It's depending on shapes and sizes. Next part is morphological and rural settlement. What do you understand by morphology? Morphology means understanding the internal and external structure. See, you can see the external structure by just viewing them, but for internal structure you should know the society over there, how society is acting in building or constructing of these settlements. So for example, if you go to any villages, in village, if you just see the external structure, you won't know what is the morphology of that rural settlement. But generally what happens at the good areas or in the center part of the village, the head of that village or the Brahmins or the rich people, economically well people, will reside in that area, whereas the other people like farmers and all will reside in peripheral area, that means the outer area. So this is called as morphology of rural settlement. Same happens in cities also. You can just see we have some posh area in cities, we have some outer area in cities. So from there we can see what is the morphological rural settlement. Next up settlement is urban settlement. So what would be the urban settlement? So again, the structure or the housing which are there in cities would be termed as urban settlement. So if you have been to any city, you know very well how houses are made. They are very compact and larger in size as compared to villages, because people in cities believe in better living standard. They need space and lots of things are there which are mentioned over there. For that very purpose, the houses are very compact. That means no places are left between two houses. You've generally seen in villages, if two houses are to build, they will leave a gap or space in between. But in cities, what will happen? They will just stick one house to another house. This way all houses are made. A road will go in between, and again the houses will be sticking to each other. So this kind of settlement are found in urban areas. Or else you can see flat system. If you have been to any city, if you're living in Delhi or any city, you might have seen the flat system. That means one floor belongs to someone else, other floor belongs to someone else. So these kind of settlements can be found. And apart from this, the market area would be very near to storehouse to houses. Like if you are residing in city, it will be very easy for you to go to market. It would be nearby where you are residing. But whereas in villages, markets are not available everywhere. You have to go travel a little bit for finding markets. So this urban settlements is divided into many parts like statutory towns, census towns, city outgrowth, metropolitan cities, mega cities, conurbation, megapolises. So these are dependent on the population of how many people are living, and sometimes the administration. That means like the city, just a minute. Yes, like a statutory town. So over here, all kind of boards like municipal corporation, municipality, containment board. So these kind of body will be residing in this area. So it totally depends upon the population and kind of administration or work which are going over there. So generally a city or town is dependent on the population. So in a city, if a population of any place is more than 1 lakh, that would be called a city. And similarly it goes on with other places like metropolitan cities. So cities with population of 1 million, that is 10 lakh people, would be termed as metropolitan, whereas mega cities, the people or population with more than 5 million, that means 50 lakh, will be termed as mega cities. Whereas in countries like UK and United Nations, there would be population, the minimum population to be considered is 10 million and above for mega city. So these are the urban settlement. Next is urbanization in India. Now what is urbanization? Again, you know, urbanization just means moving of people from rural area to urban area. This is simply termed as urbanization. That means migration of people from village or town areas to big cities. That would be called as urbanization. Now what are the causes of urbanization? Why it happens? We have already discussed under migration. See, we have seen the consequences or the why the migration was done. Causes: because better opportunity was there in urban areas. They got better healthcare, better education, better economic, better culture. So lots of reasons were there for people to migrate from one place to another place. As you know, people residing to villages or in any rural area, they don't have much job opportunity. They just depend upon agriculture or just they sit idle. So if they have to earn some money, in order to that they have to go to cities. So that's why urbanization is happening in India. And because of this urbanization, a concept of smart cities has been developed. What are smart cities? Smart cities simply means the cities which have nice infrastructure, good road, good railways, good facilities, all kind of facilities which are easily available in city. That would be termed as smart city. Even our government has proposed for developing 100 smart cities. And as we know, 90% of world urban population growth will take place in developing countries. That means whatever smart cities would be made, they will be made in developing countries, because cities are being inhabited or built at this moment. And as we know, the population living in urban area is only 31%. 70%, almost 70% of population live in villages, but this 1% of population gives 60% of India's GDP. They contribute to 60% of India's GDP. Why they contribute 60% of GDP? Because all the service sector, most of the industries, they lie somewhere in or near the cities. Okay. And what is smart city? We know what is smart city. I don't need to explain this again. And what will be the pillar of smart city? That means how any city would be called as smart city. So again, the place or the cities in which there would be a good institutional infrastructure, physical infrastructure like roads and railways, solid waste management, drainage. So these system, wherever there would be there, that place will be called as smart city. Social infrastructure means like education, healthcare, entertainment. These places where they will be called as pillars of smart city. So these are the pillars. That means in any smart cities, these pillars should be available, then only that place would be called as smart city. Okay, now next is smart city mission. So as I've already told, our government has a plan to develop 100 smart cities, making them citizen friendly and sustainable. And for this very purpose, they need to be very challenge and competitive. So because smart city are very highly economically well, and lots of competition over there for business purpose. And what are the programs highlights? So in smart cities, these are the highlights which help any city to be smart, like smart governance, smart energy, smart environment, smart transportation. Everything smart, whatever present there would be smart in nature. Like education, smart technology will be used in education. Health and hospital, in hospital a good quality of instruments would be used for taking care of patients. Similarly, everything would be smart in that area. So I think the topic is over. So I hope you've understood the migration and settlement. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment box. Thank you for watching. See you in next video with new subject. Till then, goodbye.